You're on now.
Good morning. This is Yvonne Flores, Chair of this committee, the Animal Service Center of Movida Valley. It is 2 a.m. I know 3 a.m. and I'm now calling the meeting to order. We have a quorum. And item 2 on the agenda is changes to the agenda. Are there any changes? Approval of the agenda?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Sanchez. Do we need
Yes,
to take an official roll call to determine quorum?
Oh, you know what? You're absolutely right. That's the new thing now, right? So, Mr. Dollahan, would you please take the roll call?
Gladly, Madam Chair. David Dollahan for the record. Councilor Abeda Stube.
Here.
Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Gondara.
Here.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Present.
I'm David Dollahan. I'm the ex officio member from the city. I'm present. Jeannie Quintero.
Present.
And Madam Chair Flores.
Present.
You have quorum, Madam.
Did you call Lynn Ellen's name?
Sorry, Commissioner Ellens?
Yeah, did you call his name?
No, ma'am, I did not, but I didn't see him on the...
Oh, I see. You're looking at the participants list. Okay. So we do have a...
If he joins or if Commissioner Gonzalez joins, I'll be sure to point that out at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
2 of them. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dollahan. Thank you very much. So we shall proceed. May I have a motion to accept the... first of all, are there any changes to the agenda? If none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Bandera.
Thank you.
Mr. B.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
No, you have to take a.
Madam Chair, I'll call the roll.
We have to call a roll on it. Thank you.
Councilor Abeda Stube.
Yes.
Councilor Gondara.
Here. Yes. Sorry.
Welcome to my world.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Yes.
Chair Flores. Chair Flores.
Yes, yes.
Motion carries, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dollahan. Next is the minutes. Did everyone have a chance to look at them, to review them, to see if there's any substantive changes?
I have no changes, Madam Chair.
Councilor Stuvey?
None, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Sanchez?
No, Madam Chair. I'm fine with the minutes as is. I apologize.
No, okay. Yes, no, whatever. Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. Well, we're off to a good start. Where's our coffee? We need coffee. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
yes.
we need a motion and a second, and I'll call the roll on the minutes approval.
Yes. May I have a motion to approve?
This is Commissioner Sanchez. I'll move approval.
Second?
Second, Abeda Stube.
Thank you. Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Dollahan?
Yes. Councilor Abeda Stube.
Yes.
Councilor Gondara.
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Yes.
Chair Flores.
Yes.
Motion carries, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dollahan. Next is our reports and presentations. Ms. Jean Gilbert, I see you here. Nice to see you. So would you please present?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Jean Gilbert, Secretary, Coalition for Pets and People. And here is the listing of community organizations that will be represented in this month's PowerPoint. Organizations that aren't listed will be featured in next month's presentation. Okay, next slide, please. The coalition, here's the highlights of some of the coalition's work for September and October, which includes, pardon? This includes presenting the Community Animal Welfare Report, which was the last ASCMV meeting, September the 24th. We had a brief visit and tour of Cat's Meow with board member Michelle Correa leading the tour. And there was also a public discussion. This was with Clint, conversations with the center, and that was October the 2nd. And October the 8th, I visited Deming Animal Guardians and had a meeting with Pat Dancer and visited the Deming Animal Guardians Silver Whiskers thrift store. And in addition, there's just ongoing work with our various projects. Thank you.
Madam
Next
Chair.
slide, please.
Yes, Councilor Gandara, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
I'm sorry, is it okay to ask questions or you want to wait till the end of the presentation?
I'm fine with you asking questions if it's okay with everyone else.
It's fine by me, so pose your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jean. I'm really excited about the conversations with the Animal Services Center. Can you give in a little more detail about what those conversations are, comprised of, and if there were opportunity to come up with any strategies? I remember last month we spoke to, some of the things that I think the your coalition and some of the animal groups are experiencing, and the Animal Services Center. And so I was hoping that we could have these types of conversations and have those specific items addressed during those times. So can you tell me a little more specifically what those conversations?
Yes, well, and I know Clint will probably speak more to it during his presentation, but they are Zoom meetings that are held the first Friday of the month. And it's my understanding, I believe this is the third one, and I know I've certainly enjoyed participating there. Some of the people that have been in the meetings or in the conversations have been representatives of animal organizations. For one example I can think of is Kelly Barker, who is the director of the organization formerly known as Uncaged Paws, but is now known as Bark House. And how Clint has it set up, and of course he can tell you in his presentation, but we hear brief reports and updates from all the managers and all of his team, which has been very insightful and very informative. And then people who attend the meeting are invited to ask questions and make comments. And this last meeting, I know a suggestion of mine, I had a number of questions that I presented to Clint, but one of them was wondering about the pet of the month, if the pet of the month could be both a cat and a dog, and if that might be something under consideration. And I was just thrilled that it seemed like it was like the next week that the pet of the week was both a cat and a dog. Excuse me. And I know there are probably a number of organizations in addition to the coalition, but we post the pet of the week every week on our Facebook page and share it to our other animal pages, because we want to get as much visibility as possible for these animals. And I hope I answered your question or your inquiry, Cassandra.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jean. I just know that if you've mentioned them before, I haven't seen it, and I just wanted to make sure that, you know, the issues that maybe come up here or for others in these animal groups, that would be an opportunity to speak to that and get, you know, more of a collective voice and moving forward to address any issues that maybe the center and you all are having. So I appreciate giving more detail. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Two Hearts for Paws is located in Radium Springs, and their presence is very important because Radium Springs is an underserved community. And this is reflected in a outdoor mobile clinic that they held with Dr. Carver August the 20th. They reported doing 26 rabies shots, and they implanted 14 microchips for pets at that clinic. They advocate for stray and homeless animals like this 6-year-old dog, Lucky, who they're helping with temporary care until he is adopted. Thank you. Next slide, please. Action programs for animals reports 10 animals were adopted during the month of September, to include little Opie, who's pictured here. And 13 animals were transported to rescue and new homes during the month of September. APA took in 50 animals during the month of September, to include kittens. Some were featured at their thrift store anniversary, and little Paisley, pictured here, is getting around in her wheel cart at APA's facility, and little Paisley was also at their anniversary observation at the thrift store. APA's adoption numbers stand at 136 for January through September, with 71 transfers, and their numbers and stats are reported in the board members' packets that the coalition provided. Okay, next slide, please. APA expresses appreciation for Kelly Barker's organization, Bark House, which I referenced earlier, formerly known as Uncaged Paws. And they express their appreciation for transporting 15 felines, APA felines by air. And this was October the 17th, to new homes in San Diego. Bark House had 3 flights scheduled this month with pet rescue pilots, and Dog is my co-pilot. The October 12th flight was for moms and puppies, and those numbered 25. And October 17th, as I mentioned, was a cats only flight. And October 20th was a flight for big dogs. The coalition will report more information on Bark House and their flights. They'll be featured in next month's PowerPoint. Thank you. And next slide, please. And this is Broken Promises. These photos highlight the life-saving work that Broken Promises does with their trap, neuter, and return or release, rescue, foster, and adoption services. Toby, pictured with his new owner, is shown here at the PetSmart store where Broken Promises operates the cattery there. Also pictured is the 9th cat out of a colony of 9 that Broken Promises successfully TNR'd here recently. Broken Promises reports TNRing 15 cats and adopting out about 5 felines for September the 7th, for September the 1st through October the 7th. Their totals are about 50 cats TNR'd and 28 adopted for January through October the 7th. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Cats Meow has taken in a lot of cats and kittens this year, to include this adorable litter pictured here, nestled together. Cats Meow adopted 35 cats and kittens for the month of September, bringing their total to nearly 200 for January through September. They've been extremely successful. Jesse James, Cats Meow Kitty, pictured here, has found his new home after being featured at Better Life Pets Foods. And this business has a kitty showcase, and they use it to help promote felines that are from area rescue. So Better Life Pet Foods, as we know, does a lot of wonderful work for the community. Cats Meow is holding a virtual auction with registration occurring right now, and their bidding begins October the 28th and goes through October the 30th. Thank you. Next slide, please. Cherish Canines helps a lot of community animals, including dogs from our shelter, such as this mom dog and 3 pups who were recently placed in their foster care. The mom dog and pups were intercepted when Carla Baker, Cherish Canines director, was at the shelter to pick up some paperwork. She learned from the person who was turning in the dogs that they were found at a construction site. They were confined to a crate, had been abandoned there, and they were covered in fleas and ticks. Maggie, pictured far right, was born in Cherish Canines care and has been with them for 1.5 years until she was recently adopted. And she joins a family, and you can see Kendall pictured on the other side of her there. And Kendall is also a Cherish Canines dog who was adopted a few years ago. So there's a Cherish Canine family there. They do amazing work. Thank you. Next slide, please. Donana County Humane Society are holding fundraisers this month to include a 5K run October the 31st and a Halloween costume contest October the 23rd. And of course, these are all virtual. Their programs include their Animal Relief Fund, or called ARF, their Rough to Ready, which is a behavior intervention and training program for pet retention to keep animals who are adopted, and these are shelter animals, to keep them in their homes. And then their Pets for Seniors program, which discounts adoption fees for shelter animals adopted by people 60 years or older. So in other words, DOC's mission is really basically entirely for the animal shelter, which is awesome. Next slide, please. Excuse me. Donana County Humane Society here is represented again. Marley's pictured here and is one of the many animals helped by the Donana County Humane Society's Animal Relief Fund. In addition to their October fundraisers, which I mentioned, Docs held a Double Your Impact virtual fundraiser with donors matching contributions by supporters within a defined range for furthering the Doñana County Humane Society's programs, which I've already mentioned. And then, of course, a couple of months before last, I believe I mentioned that Doñana County Humane Society has moved from their location, which was on Picacho. They've moved to their offices at 424 North Main. Next slide, please. Humane Society of Southern New Mexico has adopted 16 animals year to date, so January through October the 15th, including this Bichon poodle mix here, pictured left. About a dozen animals are currently in HSNM's foster program, including the puppy pictured here in the lap of board member Frank Bryce and Jeff Murphy. Funds from the Humane Society's yard sale like this one, which was held October the 3rd, and other fundraising events support the organization's pet helpline in securing resources for animals in need, plus HSNM's foster adoption program, education program, as well as financial assistance that HSNM provides for microchipping, spay and neuter, and other veterinarian services. And some of the work through the pet helpline is noted in the board members' packets with HSNM stats. Okay, and next slide, please. In addition to free animal-themed books and materials that are awarded to children for participating in HSNM's online story videos and activities, HSNM is also offering a $50 Ally in Education Award to animal nonprofits for every 3 supporters who participate, designating their organization. There's no restriction on age of participant, so the offer applies to adults as well as youth participants. HSNM has granted 2 Ally in Education, actually it's 3 as of now, 3 Ally in Education awards so far this fall, with 21, believe that's closer to 24 individuals now viewing the online story videos promoting humane treatment towards animals. So HSNM is really thrilled that their online education program and their allies program is starting to catch on. Next slide, please. October is Pit Bull Awareness Month. Educate, don't discriminate. The coalition encourages people, if they're in a position to adopt an animal, to adopt from the shelter, adopt from our area rescues. And if you are in a position to have a larger dog, we encourage you to adopt a pit bull mix. And you know that APA often holds the Pits for Peace. And of course, we're missing that this year because of the need to social distance and not hold events. But they've done a lot to promote awareness about pit bull animals so that they are not discriminated against. Unfortunately, our community is very good about that. Sadly, some communities have laws that have banned them, which is very, very unfortunate. And the last slide. The coalition encourages people to volunteer, and even in this time of COVID and having to social distance, there's still many opportunities for us, and that includes rescuing, adopting, and fostering, among many other things. Thank you for your time, and I'll stand for any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Jean Gilbert? Thank you very much, Ms. Gilbert. Thank you for all your work and direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Excuse me. Next item on the agenda is city and county ACO reports. Gino or Mary Lou?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. So these headphones are working good then. I'll go ahead and start if that's okay with you, Gino.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, let me go ahead and start my screen sharing. And let me start this. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes, we can. Or I can. Thanks, Mary.
Because I am not seeing it here on my side. Okay, I think I got it here. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with Doñana County's our September report. So the format's going to be just a little bit different, and I'll go over it as we go over the report. So our grand total of dispatch calls for September was 501 calls. We had 81 self-initiated calls and 22 animal control assist calls, so it gave us a grand total of 608 calls for the month of September. Reported stray calls for September, we had 240 reported stray calls. We picked up 91 stray cats, 109 stray dogs, which gave us a total of 200 stray animals. Additional animals that were picked up that were not the stray animals that were reported we had no reports for owner surrender cats, but we had 13 owner surrender dogs, 22 sick or injured animals, 15 welfare holds, 1 report of an animal cruelty or neglect abuse case, and then of course 7 shelter quarantines. And I put this together just as the field return to owner 3-year comparison, just so it'd be kind of a comparison to the cities as well. So this is a 3-year comparison. Our field return for September was 19, which gave us a year to date of 294 field return to owner. Now, as requested by Commissioner Ellens, just separating those return animals, stray animals picked up as per by Commissioner District. I separated those by Commissioner District, but if you look at the little asterisks, you're going to see which indicates shared stats because the Commissioner Districts run together. So as those districts get reported to us, they are Geo Districts. And so through the 911 call center, That's how they get reported to us, and so that's how our stats get reported. So I tried to separate those out as much as I could. So some of those stats are going to be shared stats. So if you look at those, they're not going to be completely true on that, but I do have them later on separated again by Geo Districts. So I tried to completely separate them as much as I could. So if you go into District 1, which is Commissioner Ellen's, we had 19 cats picked up and 21 dogs. Commissioner District 2, which is Commissioner Gonzalez, which is 36 cats and 35 dogs. Commissioner 3, which is Commissioner Reynolds, that's District 3. There's 19 dogs and 21 cats. Again, those are shared districts, because a lot of those districts, the communities run in together. Commissioner Solis's district, which is District 4, we had 18 cats and 29 dogs. And then again, District 5, which is Commissioner Sanchez, 18 dogs and 24 cats. So now are the Geo Districts. So we don't have any shared stats on these, and you can look at them as just the Geo Districts as they are through the 911 call center as they come in, District 1 through District 7, and it'll give you your cats versus your dogs. And I won't go over them all, but you can see what we've picked up there. Our bite calls, we had 17 exposure bites to humans, 2 exposure bites to animals, 3 rabies submissions. Those were all negative. Animals that were current on the rabies vaccinations from the bites exposures were 3. And then we had 7 quarantined at the Animal Services Center. So out of those 7, 5 of those bite animals were from one. We had 2 of them were from one household, so we had 5 animals, and so we had like 3 dogs from one household and 2 from another household. We didn't quarantine anything at the Courthold facility. We still had 3 animals that were still housed from a prior case. We had nothing at the vet clinic at this time, and 3 home quarantines, and then we had 10 animals that were gone on arrival. Going into the reasons for owner release, we had 2 animals that were too aggressive. We had 9 that they could no longer care for and couldn't handle the dog. And then we had 2 for exigent circumstances. The animals were malnourished and mistreated. And going into our court cases, we had 4 animal control cases that went to court for September. Those 4 court cases had 8 charges, which equaled out to about 16 and a half hours of regular hours, 5 hours of overtime. 4 of those cases were dismissed from one case of one officer who was unavailable. That's due because the officer has been out for an extended period of time. We had 2 cases continued. We had a guilty and 1 sent for a bench trial. Added information on the court cases. These were the reason for the citations. We had 1 that was issued for a pet license. 2 citations issued were for restraint requirements. Those were the citations that were issued on those charges that they went to court on. 2 were also issued for rabies control violation requirements, and 1 was for multiple animals site permit. This was not on your handout. I got this information a little bit late, so I just added it because I thought it was important to put it in there, and I apologize for that. This was a SNAP report from September. They reported that they did 33 dogs and cats that were neutered, 18 dogs that were spayed and neutered, 18 cats that were spayed and neutered, 48 rabies vaccinations, and 51 microchips that were done for the Doñana County contract they have with us. So this wasn't questions that were from the last meeting we had from Commissioner Ellens in regards to the animal control court cases. He asked what was the charge was for in regards to the guilty court outcome with the $200 fine. The answer to that was for a restraint requirement on a dog that was running loose. So for that, I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? Mary Lou, I have a question. On your district pickups, you said that there was, I can't even read my handwriting. There were shared stats which were duplicated. Does that mean that instead of 16, what does that mean when they're duplicated? Does it mean that the numbers
So,
exactly, or what?
so whenever we get animals reported strays by the 911 call center, they come in as districts through the 911 through a Geo district. That's the same district that the sheriff's department uses, and that's how the statistical information gets reported to us. And that's how we have been keeping track of the stats for all these years. So to separate it up by commissioner district, it's a little bit more difficult for us because those districts can run together. Like say Commissioner Ellens and Commissioner Reynolds, some of their districts can overlap each other in regards to the Geo district. So
would that mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, otherwise I'll forget. I mean, I won't process. So does that mean, Mary Lou, that the stats are skewed then because they're reported in one district and another district that's only one animal, but they're
that means if we were to only report it that way, they would be. But that's why I don't want to report it only that way. That's why I tried to report it two separate ways, because I think it's important to show the Geo districts, because then the numbers do not get shared. But if we do it just by the commissioner district, there's no way of separating out those Geo district stats. Because if you look at like maybe Mesquite and Vado, those areas by a Geo district, they're going to be shared by the commissioners versus, like any other way to actually separate those stats. So if somebody were to own or release a dog, or if we were to pick up a stray, it's really hard to know exactly where it's coming from in regards to that. So we only know it by the Geo district. So I tried to separate it out as much as I could in regards to that. But it would be a shared stat. So it kind of gives a commissioner a little bit of an idea what they're looking at in their district, but at the same time, it's taken with a grain of salt. It's not a true stat, but you still have that Geo district, which gives you the true numbers.
The true numbers, great. Thank you so much.
Mary Lou, what is meant by geo? Does it mean geographical? What does that mean?
Yes,
okay.
Geo.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Any other questions, folks? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Thank you very much, Mary Lou. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Gino, are you ready for your?
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me.
Good morning.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Everybody's fine.
Good. Let me see if I can get this going.
Get to go outside. Get to go outside.
So can everybody see my slideshow?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. So, Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Gino Jimenez. I'm the Animal Control Supervisor for the City of Las Cruces. I will present to you our September numbers, September 2020. So, for the month of September, we responded to 370 stray calls. Of those, 186 were GOA, meaning gone on arrival. We were able to apprehend 184 of those animals. 158 of them were impounded at the Animal Service Center. Of those, 65 were dogs and 93 were cats. We were successful in field RTOing 26 animals. We were unsuccessful in field RTOing 5, and those 5 are included with those Animal Service Shelter impounds. So we had a total of 32 identifiable animals. So here is our 3-year comparison chart. As you can see, our stray chart, I'm sorry. our numbers are really going low. And historically, this is the time of year where our numbers start going down anyways. But for the month of September, we did respond to 370 calls for service. And for the year, we're at 3,786. Here is our 3-year chart for our field RTOs. Again, for the month of September, we were able to field RTO 26 animals. And for the year, that puts us at 285. So our reasons for not being able to field RTO, the 5, there was no contact by phone or at the resident. Here's one that it's really, I believe it's a good thing. Reasons for owner releasing animals, we had none for the month of September. I know that the officers are taking more time with people, and let me back up. We have had many requests for citizens wishing to owner release their animals. However, the officers have been spending time with them and letting them know that maybe the best option for that animal is for the owner to rehome it themselves or to educate them. And then the final option would be to owner release it to the Animal Service Center. So at this time, in order to help the Animal Service Center, we are only taking owner releases where the animal poses a threat to the family or to the public, meaning it's aggressive for some reason, or the other is because it is sick or injured and the owner cannot provide that medical care that it needs. So I believe for this month, this is a good number for us, and hopefully this trend continues. So here is my map. I'm going to go and skip forward to the other ones. I'm sorry, for some reason it didn't upload. Let me grab it real quick. Okay, can everybody see my map?
No, I can't. I don't know about others. The only slide that's up right now, Gino, is questions.
Okay,
Gino, I would suggest just, oh, there it is.
there it is.
There it is. Jeez.
All right, let me get it to this month. So here is our map of the city, and this will show the number of stray animals that were impounded by the officers. And to go back to what Mary Lou was saying, we follow the same reporting system because we get our information from Central Dispatch. However, our GIS department was able to break it up into counselor districts. But if you were to get the true report, would show it as police districts for us. So in some instances, let's just say the boundaries right here between districts 1, 2, and 3, where my cursor is, this could be actually district police beat district 1, but it encompasses 3 different council districts. So that's why those numbers aren't always true. However, for the mapping, our GIS was able to pinpoint it to council districts, which is a little more helpful. So let me zoom out a little bit. If anybody has any questions about the mapping, please let me know if you need me to zoom in on a certain area. But overall, here is September's 2020 September numbers.
Which are, we see, all I see, Gino, are the, the dots or the little squares.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you very much. The orange represents cats. The blue represent dogs. And you'll see the little red dots represent other. Those could be skunks, squirrels, javelinas, bobcats, mountain lions, anything other than dogs and cats. Goats. If you'd like, I can go to this one right here, click on it, and it'll tell me exactly what transpired on that call.
Squirrel?
Mm-hmm.
Why would anybody call on a squirrel?
Believe it or not, excuse me, squirrels can get pretty destructive, especially if they're trying to den under somebody's shed. They can weaken the concrete under it. And also, if they get into your engine compartment, for some reason, they really like the plastic coating on the wiring on engines. So they will eat that away, and eventually it could cause a short in your motor. So
That's true. That happened to Mayor Pro Tem's car, I think, at one point.
That's the other thing, you don't want them in your attic space.
yes,
Right. And I had squirrels in a house I used to own or live in, has a chimney, and they got in through the chimney and they chewed away. I guess they're trying to get out. So they chewed away at the, what do they call the blinds, the wooden blinds?
Mhm.
And they were just running, I thought somebody broke into the house, and it really made a mess out of my, they were running all over the house. And we finally, we called the police department, and they came and said, it was just squirrels. It wasn't an intruder. But yeah, you're right. I forgot about those little squirrels. Thank you, Gino.
You're welcome. And I think it's good to note that all we do is relocate them. We take them out a little bit further from the community so that, we don't want to harm them in any way. So we just take them out where they can thrive better in their own environment rather than ours.
Yeah.
And with that, Madam Chair, I will stand for any questions.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
Mr. Sanchez.
Commissioner Sanchez, proceed.
Yeah. Gino, I'm just curious, a couple of things. I guess I'll add in, I think the reason for the wiring that we've seen more of that rise is because of what they're actually making the wire out of. And I think it's like they make out of a soy product now. And so that's why the rodents have been attracted to them. But my question was, I've seen a number of, and I think on the daily reports from the Animal Service Center, and this might actually, I don't know if you can answer this or this might be better suited for Mr. Thacker. But there's been skunks that that have been euthanized, and I've seen it. I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like there's been an uptick on the number of skunks that have been euthanized. So I was wondering, is that something that you all get called and then they get taken into the service center?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Sanchez, yes, sir. We are complaint driven. So we are going to respond to those calls for services that the citizen calls us for. Before COVID, we would actually loan out traps so that citizens could capture those nuisance animals like skunks. After that, we would take them to the Animal Service Center for their disposition. They would either choose to euthanize them or relocate them. Now that COVID has hit us, we have stopped or suspended our trap program. However, we will still pick up animals from privately owned traps. There is an uptick in skunks because it's becoming that time of year where things are starting to cool off, and they're going to fatten up as much as they can. So our calls for service for skunks has not stopped. I don't know what Clint's protocol is, whether they get euthanized or relocated. That is entirely up to him. But if I can zoom in on my map, you'll see that this area right here that runs along the EBID, or close to the EBID, that's where the majority of our skunks come from. So it's right, this little corridor right through here. Brown Road, Burn Lake, that area. That's where the majority of our skunks come from. I don't know if in his daily report it's showing higher numbers, but on my reports, it's pretty consistent with skunk calls. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. And I didn't know if, and that's what I was trying to figure out. I guess I hadn't seen, and I didn't know if it was activity or what was driving it. And so it makes a little sense, or it does make sense. And I don't know if Mary Lou is still on the call. I'm just curious if, from the county's perspective, do we do similar, or where we capture or we take into the service center, or do we just I think we outsource to the if we just go to the USDA for a lot of those calls.
We have a contract. We have a contract with the Wildlife Services, the county does. And so any skunk calls that we get goes automatically to them. And so they will go out to those individuals' houses, and if they're nuisance animals, if there's a safety involved, public safety or whatnot, they will educate first. If whatever the case is, they give us a report twice a year on what they're doing with these cases, and then we present that report to the county. And then either in some cases they have to euthanize the skunks. In some cases they don't. They can take them and they can pick them up. But most of the time, it depends on what they're going out for. But it's either, if it's skunks or other type of wildlife, the Wildlife Services will go out. We don't go out for any kind of wildlife services because we do have that contract with them.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Lou. I appreciate it. And thank you, Gino. I appreciate the clarification. I just was curious, like I said, when I'm seeing those updates from the service center, in particular, the skunks caught my attention. So I appreciate the clarification on that.
You're welcome. Madam Chair, Commissioner Sanchez, also to piggyback on what Mary Lou was saying, we do have an MOU with USDA Wildlife Services. And right now that contract is for them to provide services for predatory animals. However, there has been discussion for us to utilize them to address all wildlife calls. So similar to what the county is doing right now.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez, and thank you, Gino, for that information. I didn't know that the city had a contract with USDA.
Yes, ma'am. And like I said, for right now, it's only predatory animals, like your coyotes, your bobcats, anything that's not protected through New Mexico Game and Fish. But like I said, we're trying to expand that for them to address more of the nuisance animals like the skunks and such.
Do you have any numbers on that, Gino? Do you get reports from USDA? Because in order to keep up a contract with USDA, you have to show stats, I think, to justify the need and to renew the contract. Am I correct in that?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes, ma'am, you are. However, I don't have those numbers. Those are reported directly to the deputy chief. So.
And that would be Lieutenant DC Lieutenant Daines?
I believe it would be interim interim Chief Dominguez right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gino.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm sorry, I don't have the participants, so feel free to jump in. Yes.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to go on to the record. It's 9:56, but Commissioner Ellens did join us at 9:15 this morning. Thank you.
Oh, yes, I did see that he showed up. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a quick question.
Yes, Councilor Abeyta-Stubbe.
Thank you. And thank you, Gino. Honestly, I think it's more of a clarification with what you just said. If then a private resident traps an animal themselves, then it can be picked up can you explain that process to me? As you know, I've had an area where there's an issue with cats, but that the person doesn't want. Is that an option for him to do, is to independently trap the animal to be picked up? Or is it something, I know that we're not trying to send healthy animals, of course, to the shelter, but it does look like it's okay in some cases. And so I'm just trying to get clarification on that.
Madam Chair, Council Abeyta-Stube, yes, ma'am. If a citizen wishes to trap cats, we will still pick up those animals from their privately owned traps. The reason that we have stopped issuing our traps is two parts. I think we were probably one of the biggest contributors of cats to the Animal Service Center, and at their request, we have limited that number. And second of all, we are really trying to reduce our exposure to citizens as well as their exposure to us, because the officers are all over town at any given time. So we really don't know where we have been exposed, and then come in contact with another citizen, there's that potential. So we really reduced that number, and we thought that by suspending our trap program would help that. So if a private citizen wishes to trap, and like I said, we will still continue to pick up that animal from their trap, we ask that we limit that exposure. Just tell us where the trap is. We will go remove that animal from the trap and then impound it. There's no need to step outside and greet us and get into a conversation. We'll take care of that and move on to our next call. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. That does offer some really good clarification. And, I do want to make sure we're mindful of your safety and the safety of the residents. But like I said, this is one particular area it's a recurring issue now for a few months. So I'm trying to find opportunities for a bit of relief, but also safety. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, that's all my questions.
Thank you, Councilor Abeyta-Stube, and thank you, Gino. Does anybody else have a question for Gino or for Mary Lou? Okay, thank you very much, Mary Lou. Thank you, Gino, and we'll proceed to item 4C, which is the shelter and activities. Clint Thacker. Mr. Thacker?
I'm here, Madam Chair. How are you doing today?
Very well. How are you?
Doing great. Having a great day. I had to apologize. I have 4 kittens running around my office. And so if you see me wince in pain, that means they're climbing up my leg or they're just saying hi. So
Okay.
First I wanted to start off by sharing my screen here. This is the drive-through clinic totals. Can you see that, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So the drive-through that we did, the drive-through clinic, was on September 27th. We had an incredible turnout, biggest one we'd ever done. It was at the Tailshore Theaters there by Sam's Club. We used the old Kmart parking lot as well. So they started off in the Kmart parking lot, winding around in between the rows. They went behind the theater. And then came into the main part of the theater where they do the drive-in right now, and then they exited through there. We did 579 rabies vaccines, and this is we had to start early because the incredibly huge line of cars that was already there at 8 o'clock in the morning. So we started at 8:30, and it was only supposed to go till 1, but we continued to go until 2. So we did 579 rabies, 436 of the DHPP vaccines, 240 Bordetella, and we implanted 217 microchips. We saw 429 vehicles, and we counted 688 animals that came through there. So it was a phenomenal success once again. It was so much so a success that we have applied for a grant through Best Friends Animal Society to see if we can get the equipment to do these quarterly. Down here in New Mexico, we have some unique challenges. For instance, heat is the biggest one. So all these things is a pretty good financial investment if we want to do them quarterly and have places for staff to get out of the heat, have places for the dogs that are in the cars. Everybody doesn't have air conditioner. There's some that are secured in the back of a truck, so in a carrier kind of thing. So we just have to keep in mind and have ideas for all that. Not only that, but the technology side, we're lacking a little bit too. We have problems updating with our system. The battery for the iPads and things are dying mid stuff. So all these things we need to have purchasing for. So we look forward, hopefully in January, to hear if we got that grant. It's for $40,000, but it's going to go specifically for these drive-through clinics. So we had a lot of fun. Well, I should say I had a lot of fun. I don't think my coworkers had a lot of fun because they did most of the work. So starting off, I also do the director's report here. Can you still see my screen, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, let me go back. I had a cat step on my keyboard. Okay. So our current animal count at the center is 374. Again, that's much lower than it is. Thank you to our continuing success and continuing working at keeping our impound numbers down through COVID. Our intake is 642. That is 316 dogs and 298 cats. And then we put the other in there, so you have that, and that's 28 other. This is probably a good place we can talk about skunks. 24 of those others are skunks. And that is Commissioner Sanchez. He loves his math, and so he is correct. That is double of what it was last month. Last month we had 12 skunks. And then if we compare it to 2019 September numbers, that was 9 skunks. So I know that predatory animals and also non-predatory animals go through a rotation base where 1 year there'll be a lot of predators, so the prey is lower, and so it cycles. They're very cyclic like that. So maybe this is an uptick on the skunks year to have that, but we do have an increase. Now, we sat down with the Department of Ag, and also Geo and David Dallahan was there too. And we were, prior to this meeting last year, we were releasing skunks. We take them to the river bottoms in different areas and release them. Department of Ag said absolutely not for several reasons. One of them is the sickness. If the skunk is sick and it's not showing any clinical signs at that time, then we could wipe out a population of a lot of different things if we relocate it. If it's ill. The other one was, in order to properly release an animal, a test of the area has to be done for food, water, shelter. So if in 1 month, take this month for example, if 1 month we release 24 skunks down by the river bottoms, that would be an incredible influx and stress on the food, water, and shelter in that area. So they told us, do not release any more skunks. They need to be euthanized. And that's the reason why we've changed our philosophy there. We're still looking at... Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, I think, excuse me for interrupting, Mr. Thacker. Who is saying to euthanize the skunks?
The Department of Agriculture is. I can't remember the individual's name that we met with.
It's the Wildlife Services Division of the USDA, Madam Chair. And the other thing is the skunks. have a greater propensity for contracting rabies than probably any other wildlife next to a raccoon. So they don't want them released further. A better solution that we would like to tell everyone from the animal control world is if the skunk is, and skunks are nocturnal animals, and you will see them mostly at sunset or daybreak, heading out or heading home. You should leave them alone as much as possible, and they shouldn't actually be trapping them unless they actually see them during the daylight and they exhibit habits of being having rabies, which would most likely cause the animal to be out during the daylight hours rather than the nocturnal hours. I think an actual preference would be to tell the general public, have your domestic animals and your people leave the skunks alone as much as possible. They will go on about their business, and they're really good at cleaning up bugs and other things in your yard. So that would be a good public advertisement.
That is very good information, Mr. Dahlhan, and I totally agree that that's public information, and we should probably get something out through our PIO communications office as a or a PSA to let people know, because skunks, I think people know that people just associate them with that funny odor, but the fact that they are can be rabid should be something that people should be alerted to, and for people to keep their house pets or other pets, whatever, well protected against that exposure. Could we do that, Mr. Dahlhan, or how would we proceed on getting this out to the public through PSAs and newspaper articles, say in the Sunday newspaper, which I think has the highest circulation?
I will ask Codes Officer, Animal Control Officer Jimenez to work on something with our communications office for a press release.
Thank you, Mr. Dahlhan. Thank you, and thank you,
The
Mr.
center, in turn, the center has a good following on Facebook. If we can get a copy of maybe a graphic or something from that piece, we'll be happy to post it and then share it also to Dog Cruces and other places that have thousands and thousands of followers. So
Great. Thank you, Mr. Thacker. We really do have to get that information out. I didn't realize, I personally didn't know. I know they stink, but I didn't know that they were ravenous. So thank you so much.
I would say more times than not, Madam Chair, they're not rabid, but they do have a greater propensity to being rabid because they are rather prolific. And so we're going to have to be careful in our message, because I don't want to cause a panic, which could result in a different problem that people would want to harm them or capture them even more. So we probably won't publicly talk about it. We're going to promote leaving them alone.
That's a good idea. And to trap only in the daytime or whatever. Yeah, if they're out, put, traps. Okay, great. Thank you.
thank you, Madam Chair. To continue on our returns of animals to the center in 2020, September, we had 6 dogs and 0 cats. And the reasons for these returns, they gave us 4 were behavior problems, and 2 animal has health issues for that. Our outcomes for September 2019 versus 2020, we're doing really well, I believe. The percentages are showing that 195 adoptions, 70 reclaims, 156 rescues, 66 community cats, and euthanasia was 24.5. It was a full % less this year than it was last year at the same time. Now it leaves us with a live release rate of 75.6. So I went ahead and asked Bernice what our live release rate would be if we didn't have to euthanize skunks. It would actually jump up to 78% if we weren't including those in our stats. So we're still looking at, we want to be very transparent. We want to still tell people, what we're euthanizing and show what we're euthanizing. But on the other hand, these are animals that we need to find a better alternative for than just euthanizing. And I think we're on a good track with that, like we're saying. This is another new slide we have on here for euthanasia reasons that was requested by the board. As you can see, the medical respiratory signs for dogs, and this is not responding to treatment. So they've already gone to treatment. We gave them the medicine, and they're not responding to it, so they need to be euthanized. The biggest actual reasons why we euthanize, you see here, is feral for cats. Just being because the city has currently no program for the feral, so if you come in from the city, then you are going to be euthanized. That's our biggest reason there. Wildlife nuisances, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a nuisance. You just have to be a skunk or a raccoon or whatever comes in that will, those are euthanized. And they continue to go down from there to the very smallest, which is the timid. This is some of the reasons for our sick and injured for euthanasia. I know this was another question we had. So 80, because it stems from the center only accepting the sick, injured, and aggressive animals right now from the public. So the question is, well, if we're only accepting those, that's what we have to deal with. They're more expensive, and they're also more possibility of them being euthanized. So what would our live release rate be if we didn't have these sick ones and injured that are coming in? And that's 87.7%. So almost 88% would be that live release rate without these sick and injured guys. 27, as you see, not responding to treatments. This is pretty much the same, looking at the same slide that we did, just more of a spreadsheet version for that. For our visitors, we had 599. I guess I should have had my family come. We could have made it even 600 for that. And that, I believe, next year is going to see what our new standard is. That's a phenomenal number if you consider having to make appointments and only 2 at a time. If everybody was only 2, then that's 300 appointments we made in a month. So that's great to see that. Total website page views, 45,911. Again, that's all the month of September. And if you remember, this is not visitors to the site. This is actual page views. So one person may look at a dog, they may look at a cat for adoption, and they may read our resources. So that's 3 page views right there. So just keep that in mind. If they take a look and they want to see all of our dogs, then that's a whole lot of page views that they want to take a look at. Our Facebook page views, 2,998. From September 4th to October 1st. That's a really weird date, but that's the way Facebook reports is that spread. Pet of the week is, you see here, is, oh boy, Kalal and Hot Wheels. This, having 2 pets of the week was actually a recommendation from our conversations at the center that we've been having. I believe it was Jean that stated, we should have a dog and a cat. So we did. There have been some issues with that. I know, like the standard examiner, I can't remember the bulletin, I think it is, only has room to do 1. So we told them just to alternate, a dog 1 week and a cat next week. And but that's really been the only issue from that. So we're glad that we're able to get 2, a dog and a cat going. It was a great idea. So that's it for my presentation. One thing I do want to talk about that was mentioned in Jane's presentation is conversations at the center. It was an idea, kind of a brainchild of David Dallahan. He got a hold of me and said, hey, you should probably give, since public comments are kind of lacking, and hard to do. Let's do something that the public has more of a chance to talk to you at. So we thought about it, and we talked to our management team. We were all in agreement that let's do this. So the first Friday of every month, it goes out a week before. We put it on Facebook. And we give the link to the Zoom call, and I have them send questions. I have them send us questions. Email the director with your questions, and then during the conversation at the center, I read the question, and then we discuss it. I got me, the medical director. I have Paul, our kennel supervisor. We have our front office person. Bernice is there. So our volunteer coordinator and a rescue coordinator is all on there. And so if any question comes on, any of us can respond to that and talk about it. We've done 2 so far. And then we also record them and we post them on our website. So anybody likes to view them later can do that. I do have to tell you, we are really liking the Zoom features because it allows us to get the word out and to talk to people. We just have to, instead of figuring out a date and having people have space to meet in, these Zoom calls are great because we can set a date with far enough out. We already have a place to meet because everybody can stay where they're at, safe places, and then have a conversation about it. So, it's the first Friday of every month, and we're going to be doing it 1 p.m. is the time we decided on. But like I said, Facebook has all that information out. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Thacker. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Thacker.
I do.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have my participant. Okay, I'm so sorry. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate Mr. Thacker's presentation of changing it to fit a lot of our needs. I think being able to see the Facebook number of people that go to the website and the Facebook, I think those are important. I especially like the proactive approach, David. Thank you for trying to capture public comment. I think that's exciting. Thank you, Clint, for that. My only concern with that is that I've appreciated that. But I think it's important that the board have a synopsis of those questions and answers, and if there's issues or concerns, how we're addressing those. And maybe that needs to be a little more in detail. I think that's the whole idea of public comment, move in terms of the ability for a council or a board committee to hear what people are saying. So I think it eliminates sort of the board. And I have to say, I don't know that I'll have time to go back to listen to a recording or watch a recording in addition to, literally all day back to back, I'm in Zoom meetings. And then I'd be working in the evening too. And a lot of evenings I am working at that time. So I find, I love this. I love it. But if it's going to happen, we need to find a way that the board gets information so that because we're policymakers, right? If there's something that needs to be done, we should hear that from the perspective, from your perspective or the community, the public's perspective. So can we talk?
Excellent. Yeah, excellent point. What I can do is I can send, I don't know if you want to make a new committee or just send it to the executive committee. That would be up to the board to decide, but I can send a synopsis of the questions and I can include the link to where it's at so you can choose. So you can choose if you want to listen, you sure can. But yeah, synopsis of the questions that are asked, and also the discussion had is not an issue or problem. I do that.
That would be great. Or incorporating it, Clint, in your presentation, right? Your shelter updates, I think, might be another avenue. I mean, I certainly don't want to create a rolling quorum,
but I also am really interested to hear how that's, what the public is saying related to the center and the goings on of our animal entities and such. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
The actual turnout has been very, very low to the first two that we had. I think we had three people on the first one. We just chalked that up to being brand new. The second one, we had, I think, 2 people. So I hope the information is getting out to more places after the recording and people are talking about it. But, and it's always usually the same individuals that are attending and want to be a part of it. So that's good that we have some people that want to do it.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Thacker? Mr. Thacker, I thank you so much. It was a great presentation. I too share the concern that Mayor Pro Tem has expressed, that the public comments, I know that for city council meetings, what the mayor does is he reads the public comments that he receives, and I think sometimes we forward things to him, but that's how it's done. Sometimes, there's like an outpour, there's a certain issue circulating, and sometimes there aren't, but they're sent directly to the council members or the mayor. I don't know, Mr. Dallahan, if, and I think procedurally, Mayor Pro Tem, I think that we would be able to receive our individual, the commission, the board, the commissioners and the city councilors to bring any public comments and provide that for our forthcoming agendas, where we can read the public comments. And it's the same issue and the same slant or the same opinion on the issue. But yes, I think that's a very helpful thing, because I too was thinking about public participation, which is crucial. And so, yeah, we have to avoid the rolling quorum sort of thing. But if we receive individual comments, I mean, if we are CC'd, if all of the board members were CC'd on an email from one person and we don't discuss it, then we're within the parameters of not violating the Open Meetings Act. We cross that line when we start discussing it with each other, but to read it out, but to read those comments out, it is not a violation. So somehow we can coordinate that. So,
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Dallahan.
I would offer what we're doing now for this board meeting is Mr. Thacker and I think Bernice are receiving public comments, and when we get to that portion of the agenda, if there are any. So if there are comments that are coming to any of the board members to avoid the rolling quorum issue, you should forward them to Mr. Thacker, so he should add them to the issue. I would encourage the public not to make outreach to the entire board, because you never know who's going to respond to them all. You should all forward them all to Mr. Thacker, and the public should be sending them that way. That way you guarantee no one's answering them, and they're all getting read publicly during the board meeting by sending them to Mr. Thacker, and then he's on the hook for reading them during the public comment portion of the meeting.
Okay, so then
that's the best way to be consistent.
Is that the best way? Okay, all right. Well, then I was just trying to draw an analogy to city council meetings, but this is a totally different function. So, okay, that sounds like a
Madam
great
Chair?
idea. Yes.
Madam Chair, may I ask Clint a question?
Of course.
Clint, where are you announcing these Friday conversations?
What? I'm sorry, where are we what?
Where are you announcing and having these Zoom meetings and whatnot? Where are you announcing those?
It's on Facebook. We announce it on our main Facebook page and then also in our rescue Facebook page.
So I belong to that group, right? It's like getting buried in all my stuff, and I'm looking through it now and I don't see anything. So I'm wondering, and I'm seeing such cute animals. So anyway, I'm wondering if that has anything to do with the low turnout, right? That it's just getting bogged down in people's stuff. And I'm wondering if you can do some boosting, where you're targeting folks, certain folks. I don't know, but I just know that it's not often that I get it anymore, that I get it, that it comes easily. I have to go look for it, right? So I'm not seeing it here in my feed anyway, and all the posts that I'm looking, oh, here it is, October 1st, the Zoom meeting, but it's buried. So it's so cute. Yes, I don't know, maybe trying to figure out a different way of advertising as well, Clint, from the Facebook, boosting or something that then that people, because if it's anything like me, it's buried in all the stuff. So just some suggestions. Thank you.
Cassandra, if it's okay to comment that the coalition would be happy to help promote the conversations with the center announcements. So Clint, if you want to send that to me, we have a distribution list, so we'd be willing to send it out that way.
All right, thank you. You're on mute, Mr. Dahlhan.
I would also offer to Clint that he could put it on the website, and he could also do a press release. And if he writes up a press release, then it would get shared through our communications office to the media outlets, and they're pretty good about picking up city press releases.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for the ideas. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Clinton. Thank you, Mr. Dahlhan. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. So the next item is, in fact, let's see, where are we? Committee reports.
Madam Chair, the first committee report is for the Finance Committee, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Josh Saffel. We did have a Finance Committee meeting this month. It was very short. The only thing that we have to present is the monthly financials that Josh is going to present. And I do want to ask him to speak at the end of the meeting on the status of the audit. If we're on track and things like that, just quickly, nothing specific, but just the status of the audit specific to Animal Service Center. So thanks, Josh, if you could do that.
Excuse me, Mr. Saffel. So, Mr. Dahlhan, are you talking about board comments, item 6 on the agenda for him to, or what?
No, the audit is covered by the Finance Committee. So I just wanted him to just give the entire board a status of the audit, if we're on schedule and just like that, which I think we are, and it'll be completed by the end of November. So I'm just going to ask Josh to give a quick update on that. That's it.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dahlhan. Proceed, Mr. Saffel.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Josh Saffel, and on behalf of the Finance Department of the City of Las Cruces, I would like to present the unaudited financials for the month ended September 30th, 2020. So here we see our statement of net position. In the general fund, we're showing cash of $854,935 and receivables of $91,341. We had liabilities of $68,856 and revenue collected in advance of $55,501. This left us in the general fund an unassigned fund balance of $821,919. We also see in the capital projects fund cash balance and a restricted fund balance of $29,798. And then we see in the capital assets, a total amount of assets less net accumulated depreciation of $213,431. Moving on to our change in net position, we see total revenues in the general fund of $1,146,894, and total expenditures of $496,723. So for the general fund, we had a net increase to our fund balance of $650,000. We also see some expenditures taking place in the capital projects fund. That's $1,767. That was towards the, I believe, the cat room project. And we had capital assets. We recognized depreciation of $10,558. Looking at our budget to actual change in net position, we see that the actual revenue of $1,146,000 was 33.7% of budgeted revenue, and the $496,000 in expenditure was 14.8% of the budgeted expenditures. Our parameter was 25%, this being the end of the first quarter. So with revenue, we're doing pretty good, doing well above that target, and expenditures were below that target. So again, that's good. Here we see a comparison of the revenues and expenditures throughout the month, the trend. We'll notice that that last month the revenue dropped to almost the same amount as the expenditure, and then there is a definite increase in revenue. That was due to the recognition of the city providing more funds. That was accepted through a resolution, and so that kicked in, and we see that increase in the revenue taking place in the month of September. Finally, looking at our total expenditures, we see that our total expenditures again were $496,000. Of that, 78% of which was personnel expenses, and then services were 13%, supplies 4%, and insurance 4%. With repairs and maintenance and other expenses making up about 1% of the remaining expenditures. And with that, that will conclude my presentation, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Saffo. Are there any questions?
Josh, real quickly, can you?
Oh, yes.
Can you discuss the audit status real quick?
Yes, that was my question. What is the audit status at this point, Mr. Saffo?
We should be on track. The audit is taking place. We're expecting to have everything completed in line with the timetable that was set forth before during the opening discussion by the auditors. So we are on track with the audit. Everything should be completed by the end of November. I believe we are. There should be a scheduled exit conference sometime towards the end of November. We should be done around that time. However, of course, there will be, all audits have to be submitted through the Office of State Auditor. That'll happen in December. And then it takes them some time to review the information. We'll finally get a notification of the ability to print out the audit. Once we get that, we'll be able to, of course, then share the audit with the council probably sometime in February or March.
Okay. It might be sooner than that, but, right? We never.
It might be, yes, but I'm going to say tentatively March just to play it safe.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Saffo, and thank you, Mr. Dolahan. Are there any questions? Further questions? Thank you. The next is the Executive Committee, and we had no meeting this month, so we'll proceed to facilities. Mayor Pro Tem Committee Chair Cassandra Gandara.
Yes, we did meet, and Clint was able to update us on, again, some of the issues that are current related to the facilities, specific to windows and those sort of things. They're still working towards that, I believe. Clint, do you have any updates related to that particular piece, I know we were in the midst of trying to locate somebody, right, to correct the issues that we were experiencing with some of the building windows and openings, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so we do have an update. We received the go-ahead from our facilities to work with Highland Construction to get the frame and the OBS window frame fixed, and also the ceiling to get that retaped and mudded and painted, and then the window to be replaced as well, because remember I had that seal that was broken, so it's foggy. And then what was the other one? Was there one other one?
I thought it was there's some leaks from the water. Is that a portion of where it shouldn't be, like in the, is that the same thing that you're talking about? Or I thought it was in a place that probably shouldn't because of the number of animals.
That doesn't sound familiar, but I do remember you said water, the water basin, collection basin, where
Yes.
Stormwater comes into. I don't
Yes.
know if it has ever, staff here has never seen it ever being cleared out. And so it's more of a retention pond that retains for weeks.
Yes.
We were able to, facilities gave us some ideas of individuals that could come and fix that problem. So now we just need to contact them and start getting quotes on how, or getting quotes on that. It's not a budgeted item, so we're going to have to look at it and see what we can do and maybe budget for next year.
Okay. And then the update on the new facility.
New facility is moving forward really well, actually. We had the SAC committee yesterday, was able to meet, review the RFP. And so that was some of those small changes that were put on there. It's going to go back to, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but it goes back to purchasing, and they look at the recommendations we made, and then it goes out.
So, Madam Chair, Councilor Gondra, the SAC committee did meet. Clint and one of his staff members are part of the SAC Review Committee. It was finalized yesterday and voted on by the SAC for issuance. It doesn't need to come back to the committee. Purchasing will finalize any minor corrections that there were yesterday, and it should be issued, because it's late in the week, it probably will be issued early next week, and then it will be out on the streets for at least 4 weeks, and then we will get responses back. So we should have a decision made within 2 months, because then the committee has to come back together and evaluate the proposals that are submitted. And then ultimately, the city council, as the owner of the facility, has to approve the award of the contract. But once we have that contract negotiated, that will be made publicly through a council meeting.
Right. Thank you,
David.
and David. A quick question: where would one find that RFP if they were interested in applying, right, or writing a proposal?
So, Madam Chair, Councilor Gondra, it will be posted on the city's website through our purchasing department, and there will be a link to a nationwide service called BidNet. And then there is a free registration that you can get through BidNet, and then you can download the RFP. It's not the most exciting read. It is their RFPs, and it's a big file because it has design drawings in it. But it is through, and the purchasing office does have a standing list of contractors that they send the RFPs to as well.
So David, help me understand where on our website would one go? So the lost-cruces.org, you're in the main website, right? Where do one go, right, to find RFPs?
So under the main website, there is a tab called Government. Once you go to Government, you should go to Departments. Then you should go to Finance. And within the Finance, I think it's called Financial Services. Within Financial Services, there should be a purchasing page. I think purchasing is also listed under the key sections page, but it's government, departments, financial services, purchasing. 4 clicks.
Okay. David, and all the RFPs can be found throughout the city on that particular site.
Right. There's a link from financial services purchasing's page to BidNet. Because BidNet is nationwide, you can also go to bidnet.com and it will be there once it's posted.
Got it. Thank you.
And on BidNet, I believe you search by state. It does it by state. So you have to drill down as to what you're interested in.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that. I know a number of folks have been, not just this particular RFP, but others, and I tried to look but couldn't find it. So it's buried and it shouldn't be. So anyhow, it feels, I know you don't do it. It's just hard to locate. It's not easy.
Let me double check that while I'm going to get off this. I won't get out of the meeting, but I'll turn off my video and my mute and I'll double check it to make sure that I have it right. And then I'll address it further in board comments.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that concludes all of our facility. And just to let people know that are interested in finding out, right, where the status of our GEO bonds specific to the Animal Services Center, you can find that on our website at the GEO bonds portion, and then it'll tell you exactly where each of the questions, where it is in that process. So again, it's a good, I think it's, the site is good and being able for anybody to go in and check to see they're interested in where the facilities is at. You can find it there. Thanks, Madam Chair.
And thank you very much for that information, Mayor Pro Tem. And thank you so much, David Dolan, for your input on this. And yes, it's true. And going to CLC or city, lascruces.civicweb.net, if you go there, there is a place where up the upper right-hand corner says, it just says, how do I, whatever, and you fill in the blank. And then you have to, and then it's really good because then you just go all over the place and then you realize there's all these areas and then you can spend an hour or two just realizing that you have all this information literally at your fingertips. So thank you so much for that information, Mayor Pro Tem, to have our city residents and county residents as well connected to our city. Thank you. And next is public input, but we discussed that earlier, and I don't think we have any public input, or do we, Mr. Dahl? Oh, Mr. Dahlhan is probably looking for something. Mr. Thacker? Is there any
I have not received any feedback for public input.
And neither has Denise. She would have given that to you, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I do not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we'll move on to chair and board comments. So does any board member have any comments at this point? It looks like nobody has any comments. We've run out of words. Next is adjournment. But before we adjourn, I just want to say that the next meeting will be November 19, 2020 at 3 p.m. So that's a little bit different than our usual 9 a.m. And it'll be on November 19, which is, yeah. Anyway, I think the time has changed, but the day is the same.
It's November 19th at 3 o'clock p.m., Madam Chair. And before we
it's a Friday.
Clint I thought it was a Thursday.
Oh, wait a minute. You're right. I'm looking at the wrong. Let me verify that.
It should be a Thursday.
Correct. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong. Yeah. So this is Thursday, November 19th, and the thing that has changed, the only thing that has changed is the time.
It's 3 o'clock p.m.
Madam Chair, could you say again what time of day it is? It's Thursday the 19th, and what is the time?
3 p.m.
3 p.m. Thank you.
So, yeah, we're varying from our 9 a.m.
And is this just a one-time thing, or are you going to alternate?
I believe it's Mr. Dollahan, Mr. Thacker, I believe, and board members, I believe this is a one-time thing due to the holiday season.
It's for November and December.
November and December, we'll be meeting at 3 p.m. But after that, we'll go back to our 9 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes,
Great.
ma'am. And before we call the roll on the adjournment, I need you to read the closed meeting statement that is at the bottom of the meeting agenda. Item 8.
Oh, yes, item 8. So after our adjournment, the Board of Directors of the Animal Service Center of the Mesilla Valley will convene in closed session to discuss the annual performance reviews of the Director of the Animal Service Center of the Mesilla Valley, which is closed pursuant to Section 10-15-1-H, and 2, close paren, comma, NMSA 1978, close, comma, period.
And Madam Chair, we will read a closed meeting notice at the beginning of the next meeting as well, to report on our closed meeting session. But if you're ready, I'll call, we can have a motion in a second, and I'll call the roll to adjourn the meeting. For the board members, please stay on the meeting. And Clint, stay on this meeting. We will stop the recording for the closed session, but we will stay on the same Zoom meeting, and everyone else will need to leave.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Sanchez.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn and move into a closed session.
Second, Gandara.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn for the Board of Directors monthly meeting, and we are now therefore adjourned.
Hold on just a
We
minute.
are adjourned. Yeah.
Everybody.
Oh, you need a roll call.
Commissioner Ellens? Is that a yes, Commissioner Ellens? Give us a thumbs up. He gives us a thumbs up. Commissioner Beta-Stuvey?
Yes.
Councilor Gondara?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Chair Flores?
Yes.
All right, we're adjourned. Gino, Bernice, Adrian, CLC TV, you can leave the meeting. Adrian, you've stopped the recording.
Yes, give me a sec to take us off air real quick, and I'll let you know when we're done.
Okay.
Okay, we can take a little break, I suppose.
Yes, you can.
Thank you, Mr. Dollahan. Thank you. Edie, do you need to go outside?